Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing. And today I felt like playing around with some early 90s graphics cards, with this Diamond Viper VLB being my primary inspiration for doing so. Lately I've been benchmarking the LGR Woodgrain 46 PC, which really just means screwing around with random parts and playing Duke Nukem 3D. Most recently, I spent some time upgrading the 66MHz 46 CPU with an 83MHz Pentium Overdrive, the results of which can be seen in a previous LGR episode. But I've also been meaning to try some different VESA local bus video adapters, something besides the 1MB Diamond Speedstar Pro VLB I have in there right now. So while I was sorting through some random parts the other week, I scrounged up a Diamond Viper VLB Revision E3 I'd never used before and didn't know anything about. Turns out this 2MB card cost a whopping $549 when it hit store shelves in 1993, nearly $1,000 adjusted for inflation decades later, with the main selling point being that it uses a Waytech Power 9000, or maybe it's Ytech. Either way, the Power 9000 was a beastly graphics chip back then, hailed as the world's fastest user interface controller when it released in the latter half of 1992. Sounds amazing, right? And I mean, depending on your needs, it was. 2 whole megabytes of VRAM, a 32-bit 33MHz core, and 24-bit true color graphics in Windows 3.1, not to mention resolutions up to 1280 by 1024 at a 74Hz vertical refresh rate. Truly bonkers stuff for 1993. But wait, what's this other chip? An Oak Technology OTI 087X. Oh, well then, here's the thing about these graphics accelerators from the early 90s. Exactly what they're designed to accelerate varies wildly from card to card. And in the case of the Viper VLB, the Power 9000 chip is designed to accelerate 2D graphical user interfaces, specifically Windows 3.1. If you want smoother DOS games, the onboard VGA chip, the Oak Technology 087X, sucks, running only an 8-bit data path and using its own separate memory. Taking a look at the box for the card confirms this, with all the marketing centered around Windows 3.1 and programs like AutoCAD. While it does have drivers and BIOS extensions for Super VGA and DOS, the main focus was all about providing a workstation-like experience on a Windows PC. And I mean, hey, not what I expected, but that's still pretty awesome, so I'm curious enough to give it a shot. Even though I don't think we'll be seeing much improvement in DOS compared to my Speedstar Pro card with its Cirrus Logic GD5428 chipset. Gotta know for sure though, so let's get the software and drivers installed and see what we can do with the Diamond Viper VLB. I've gone ahead and taken care of the driver installation, and at this point, nothing looks any different. However, typing in VPR mode will bring up the Viper VLB setup program, letting you change around all sorts of nifty things. For starters, you can increase the default DOS text mode from the typical 80 columns on up to 132. Something I've seen supported on programs like WordPerfect before, but guess I never really thought to see if this was possible on DOS 6.22 before, but I've always liked the look of 132-column terminals in Unix-based operating systems, so this is pretty awesome. VPR mode also comes with monitor refresh rate options, providing presets for higher res displays of the time and the ability to customize as needed. You'll also get a set of monochrome and color graphics tests, handy for seeing what the card can do and adjusting your monitor's display settings for each mode. The VPR mode program is also used to enable the Diamond Viper's BIOS extensions, otherwise VESA-compatible programs won't know how to address it. If you've ever seen or used the Uni-VBE program in certain DOS games, yeah, that's a universal driver that works with all sorts of VESA cards, but the Viper VLB has its own extensions, accomplishing the same thing. Which means we can jump into some benchmarks and games, and we're going to start with one of the former, the Superscape VGA benchmark. We ran this before when I upgraded this machine from a 486 to a Pentium Overdrive, and the result was 55.7 with the Speedstar Pro VLB card I had in here before. And what do you know, the Viper VLB is worse here, coming in at only 32.5. Yeah, that Oak VGA chip though, what are you gonna do? Let's try something running in VESA mode though. Duke 3D, running at 640 by 480 resolution. This doesn't have a benchmarking mode, unfortunately, but we can run the two side by side at least. The tiny numbers at the top left of each capture is the current frame rate, and well, there's not a big difference whatsoever. Both of these cards perform pretty badly. It seems that the Viper draws a frame or two more at any given time than the Speedstar Pro, but it's still a negligible difference, and without a proper benchmark, I can't declare precisely anything precise with precision. I'd run the Quake Time demo, but for some reason the newer versions of the game all crash on this system, and older versions that do run don't show the resulting benchmark stats. Oh well, at least SimCity 2000 Special Edition works fantastically. And I mean, it did already with the other cards, so that's not saying much, but still, it's at least not any worse and works without a hitch using the card's own BIOS extensions, something I haven't always had success with using other VLB video adapters. And hey look, the monster's dropping down wind power plants instead of tossing out trees or just zapping the ground. You don't see that every day. But yeah, as anticipated, when it comes to DOS gaming, everything running in VISA mode runs about the same or slightly better, and just about everything else that runs using regular old VGA performs notably worse, again due to that Oak VGA chipset being used with only 256K of video RAM. So let's put that P9000 to use instead and get this going with Windows 3.1 as nature intended, or at least as Diamond intended. It supports anything from 640x480 with 24-bit color on up to 1280x1024 with 256 colors. And man, seeing Windows 3.1 at resolutions usually reserved for workstations of the time intrigues the crap out of me, so let's begin with that. Well, that's amazing, and everything's tiny. Compare that to how it looked maxed out on the Speedstar Pro card before this, and yeah, that's a pretty massive leap in terms of usable window space and interface shrinkage. I mean, yeah, I selected small fonts mode, but icons, scroll bars, menus, it's all itty-bitty now, especially on this 17-inch monitor. 1280x1024 was really ideal on larger format displays, in my experience, 21 inches minimum. I unfortunately don't have any computer monitors that big, at least none that are still working, so this'll do for now just to see what it's like. And no surprise, what it's like is awesome, with the ability to tile at least 4 of the classic chess bitmap wallpapers and over 16 of the excellent party bitmap, clearly worth $550 in 1993. But yeah, all the typical Windows stuff is provided more room for activities, like browsing full directory structures in the file manager with hundreds of files being displayed on screen, eliminating the need for scrolling. There's all kinds of wide open space to multitask applications, regardless of whether or not it makes practical sense. Doesn't matter. This would have been just nuts to see on Windows 3.1 back in the day, and it's still pretty surreal right now. Even using Paintbrush is a treat using the Viper VLB. Arguably it's a treat regardless, but here you've got so many more pixels to push around, and I'm happy to see that the toolbars and color swatches all scale nicely to the larger resolution. Now keep in mind we're stuck with 256 colors here, so opening a 24-bit image in something like Photoshop 3.0 isn't as impressive as it could be in terms of color reproduction, but still, this lets you manipulate larger resolution images with less of a need to scroll around, much easier than you could at 800x600 for example. Actually, yeah, let's switch over real quick to see how that looks. This is the same card running the same software, just at SVGA resolution and 16.7 million colors, also known as 24-bit True Color. You've got a smaller workspace, but the upside is that you have just millions more colors to work with as well, thanks to the 2 megs of onboard VRAM. Here's a direct comparison between the two modes just to make it more clear, and yeah, the trade-offs are apparent. Fewer colors allows for far greater resolution and detail, and True Color means a lot lower resolution but tons of vibrancy and any media taking advantage of it. Again, downright impressive for a PC in 1993. And also something that absolutely doesn't make a difference if your software and graphics assets don't support it, like designing a sign in PrintShop Deluxe here. Sure, having 24-bit color is impressive, but the standard PrintShop images are all saved in a 256 color file format, so all those millions of colors go completely unused. And running at 1280 by 1024 is nice and all, but here, all it does is make those clip art images look a tad sharper on screen, with the actual work area remaining unaffected. Doesn't make high-res Cool Crab look any less cool though. Another thing that isn't ideal in this mode, or, well, all the other things that weren't designed for it, Microsoft Solitaire, for instance, spreads everything out all over the place when maximized. The deck never changes size no matter what resolution Windows is set to, with each card practicing a form of Klondike social distancing. Same kind of thing in Ski Free, where the assets stay exactly the same, but the density is all out of whack. So there are roughly the same number of trees, rocks, signposts, and urinating canines just spread out across the play area. Kinda loosens up the difficulty level as a result, although Yeti death remains inevitable, so all is well. Another set of games that suffers is Microsoft Arcade, a collection of 5 classic Atari arcade titles from 1993, the same year the Diamond Viper VLB came out. And yeah, you can either play it in a window or play it full screen with a window in the middle at the same size. No scaling whatsoever. On the flip side, a game like Hyperoid scales perfectly fine. Ironically so, being that it was a freely distributed shareware version of Atari's Asteroids, and I gotta say, I love the way line art looks when properly scaled at this resolution, like the classic Mystify screensaver for instance. Check out those crispy shapes floating around looking sharp enough to slice her eyeballs open just by looking at them. Anyway, yeah, resolution scaling. You never really know what game or program is gonna play ball and what's gonna get sidelined when running Windows 3.1 like this. Lode Runner: The Legend Returns from 1994 is another example of things going most unfortunately wrong, with a window encased in boring patterns anytime you play beyond 640 by 480. But then you've got games like SimCity Classic from 1993, which maximizes to reveal a massive, glorious gameplay area filled with a pleasing pixel art population. I kinda like that the art assets don't scale up in this case because you're left with more of a bird's eye view of your metropolis instead of hovering directly over a handful of city blocks like you do at lower resolutions. Unfortunately, this is also one of those games that has problems at anything beyond 256 colors. So certain animations don't play correctly, or they have this weird red boundary box around them, like the ships, jetliners, and monsters. None of them look quite right in true color mode. Going back to 800 by 600 with 256 colors though, and everything is just fine. So yeah, this is just one of the many games from back then that have no problem with ridiculous resolutions, but simply don't appreciate too many colors on screen at once. Finally, the last thing I want to try are a couple of benchmarks used by PC Magazine back in the day, that being WenBench version 4 and PC Bench version 8. We'll do WenBench first since I've got this chart of results from back in 1993 comparing most of the Visa local bus cards available at the time, and as you can see, the Diamond Viper VLB was one of the best of the bunch at 15 million pixels per second using WenBench 4. So let's try it out ourselves here and see if it's similar, something I was curious about since I'm currently using a Pentium Overdrive CPU that wasn't available back then. This runs the card through all sorts of graphical stress tests that I'm absolutely unqualified to explain, but suffice it to say you'll be seeing a whole raft of visual gobbledygook, including city limit signs from Raleigh, North Carolina for some reason. How odd. Anyway, after a good 10 minutes of frantic graphical weirdness, the results are in. And we've got a combined graphical score of 21.2 million pixels per second. A pretty solid increase over what the magazine got back then. I'd compare it to the Speedstar, but it is unfortunately incapable of running this same benchmark at all. So let's try PC Bench's MS-DOS video test, and compare the Viper's Oak VGA capabilities to that of the 1MB Speedstar Pro VLB card I replaced. These tests are similarly chaotic and potentially even more seizure-inducing, so I'll spare you the demonstration and get straight to the numbers. Our Viper VLB ended up with a score of 1275.91 overall, and the Speedstar Pro VLB, that got a score of 4059.52. Yeah, I ran this a few times to be sure, reinstalled the drivers too, and the results were the same. This Speedstar is multiple times faster when it comes to non-Visa mode DOS stuff. I expected it to be quicker, but not that much quicker. Here's a closer look at the numbers detailing the individual screen write mode test results, and I mean, yeah, that pretty much cements the fact that the Viper VLB really was designed for Windows 3.1 acceleration, and DOS mode stuff was not on its radar whatsoever. And that's the Diamond Viper VLB, an expensive 2MB card back in the day, and one that was mighty impressive under Windows 3.1, but absolutely would not have been the ideal choice for DOS folks looking to up their game. Makes total sense, yet still worth knowing if you're looking to, say, build or upgrade an early 90s DOS gaming rig and are looking for an awesome 2MB VLB video card. And if that's you, this is not your card. When it comes to VESA-capable cards, there are far better options from back then, some of which I'm sure will appear on LGR in the future, so stay tuned for that if you're so inclined. Otherwise, perhaps check out some of my other videos already posted featuring this PC, or stick around for new videos each week right here on LGR. As always, thank you very much for watching, and stay safe out there.